Hi, my name's Phil. I like talking about politics. Big day for Brexit. And in this video, I'll be discussing the expectation in many quarters, arguably all of them, that Boris Johnson is going to address the nation later today, which he definitely is, by the way, but in order to confirm a no-deal Brexit and blame it on the French. But first, if you'd like to be notified of daily news and politics, please subscribe to the channel and click the bell notification icon. So, it looks like it's here. We can't be certain. Brexit is a funny old business, but it looks like it's here. The day many people have been anticipating since the 2019 general election result was confirmed. I explained in a video yesterday why the EU talks paused on Friday and why it was pointless for them to restart yesterday. Nothing could possibly happen without a political move from Boris Johnson, and the political move that's happening from Boris Johnson is to double down on his threats to break the withdrawal agreement. The Sunday papers on the Conservative side were full of stories about Boris Johnson not being prepared to move, complaining that the EU aren't respecting our independence, all the usual tosh. The Sunday Times, which is a right-wing paper but no fan of Brexit, said that the cabinet backs Johnson in a no-deal scenario, which is of course making it clear, if they're correct, that Johnson will have political support for it. Lots of people assuming that this is it, and they are probably right. We know that there will be an announcement from both the UK and the EU later this evening. We also know that the talks are not going to come up with a magical solution. So the scene is absolutely set for a no-deal announcement. Neither side seems to want to be the one to call it a day, but there comes a point where it is just irresponsible not to let people and businesses know what is going to happen on January the 1st. And it could be argued that we passed that point last month anyway. But there's arguably more political flack, particularly in the EU, from refusing to admit that will definitely be a no deal, even as Brexit happens. And obviously, if there's going to be an announcement that it's definitely no deal, I wouldn't have thought Boris Johnson wanted the EU to make that announcement. He'd probably say, if someone's going to say it, I'd rather be the one to say it, because that shows initiative. You know, there hasn't been enough movement. That's all there is to it. There has been a tangible ramp up in blame being thrown around this weekend as well. Brexiteers are trying to blame Remainers for the position we find ourselves in. I shall be joining on that little platform later today, I think. But for now, it's really about what decision Boris Johnson has to make, if indeed he hasn't already made it. It's really a case of damage limitation for the Prime Minister. I don't know if he ever really believed that he'd get the EU to back down on all the things he needed to in order to deliver his impossible Brexit promises. Did he, for example, really believe he could just bin everything in the political declaration simply because it wasn't legally binding? I don't know. We may never know. But the position he finds himself in is like being on the tracks with the runaway train almost upon him. He now has to jump. Which way is best? Both are bad. So it's really a case of which is the least bad. One way is the no-deal Brexit, which we believe he will probably go for. In the short term, he has the political support of his party for this. He will blame France, we're told, the wider EU, Labour, the SNP, the majority of the country who support EU membership, and while he's at it, probably the moon as well. It's not a British moon, you see, that's the problem. However, the support is not as solid as you may think. If Boris Johnson opts for the no-deal Brexit, yeah, he'll get a public round of support from the hardline ERG faction. Little clap there for the Prime Minister. But there'll be no private slaps on the back. Privately, they'll go to him and be making their next demand. These guys aren't allies. They're hostage takers. They're never happy. They will always demand more. So they'll sit down with Johnson and say, right, okay, you've gone for this. That's good. You should have done it earlier, but okay, you've done it. Now, you've got an earlier promise to keep as well. You said you would abandon the Northern Ireland Protocol if you didn't get a deal. In fact, to some of them, he told them he would be abandoning the Northern Ireland Protocol regardless. But either way, in a no-deal scenario, that's quite a lot of Tory MPs that were privately promised he would tear up the withdrawal agreement. They want nothing less than civil war again. Not that they actively want that as such, but they just simply don't care that it's an obvious consequence of what they do want, which means materially there's no difference. So what then? Does Johnson think that giving them their no-deal Brexit will be enough for them and that they'll leave him alone on the Northern Ireland Protocol, or at least just have muted opposition? If so, then he'd be even more naive than I imagined. So what does he do then? A no-deal Brexit with the withdrawal agreement in place is a really extreme form of Brexit, a million miles away from what was promised in 2016. But a no-deal Brexit with a withdrawal agreement that is broken, which MPs are voting to do today, by the way, is the worst of all worlds. That is, although on a practical level, it's no worse than if we just left the EU last year without even a withdrawal agreement, it represents a worse situation because we've broken our promise. It will mean we have no serious allies internationally. It will be like the snubbing that Trump's America got, only much more severe because we aren't as powerful as the US. The condemnation can be more frank, more brutal. And ironically, it will be the new US administration that will be leading that condemnation. But then Brexit has always been an irony magnet, hasn't it? This is the choice that Boris Johnson has faced for some time. International condemnation or internal condemnation. Can't survive either. Of course, the international condemnation will lead to international isolationism, which will lead to internal pressure for the government to do something, because in actual fact, we can't actually manage as a hermit nation. But that's long-term thinking. Johnson never seems to think further ahead than the end of the day. For such a mindset, it may indeed make more sense to him to please his immediate support base, the people who can get rid of him next week, than the ones who can get rid of him in a few months' time. You know, those who hold the real power. So we believe that Johnson has made the decision to announce a no deal, that he will blame the French in a clumsy attempt at divide and rule in the EU. After all, there's no way of beating a united EU. He may imagine that dividing the union can get him what he wants. I mean, it has actually worked in the past, but that was when we were members. We were insiders ourselves. We are no longer members. We are the outsiders. Not easy to do divide and rule from outside. There are also reports that they intend to blame the civil service as well. I think this is more of a fear than something that's known. You know the sort of thing, telling people that officials didn't brief them properly on the consequences. Oh, we didn't know this was going to happen. But yeah, it would have been fine, but they should have got businesses ready. We told them to get businesses ready. They just didn't do it. They just were lazy. That's the sort of thing. You know, they've tried this before. Even though the consequences have been talked about for years, they will pretend they didn't know. We also know that they definitely will blame businesses as well. So to businesses, they will say, oh, sorry, it's the officials that let you down. They were supposed to get you ready. I'm really sorry. But, you know, to everyone else, they'll say it's business's fault. For the workers who lose their jobs, well, it's because your boss is stupid. They failed to take the opportunities in Brexit. And they've said as much. They'll blame absolutely anyone and everyone. They intended to blame Labour for opposing their efforts. They expected Labour to challenge them on Brexit all the way through the year. This is why Labour chose not to do so in a very public way. They allowed the government to run the negotiations as it wished. Didn't really comment on that. There were no public calls for an extension to the transition period, for example. People opposed this line from Labour. I initially did, but then I saw the sense in it. You know, we need to recognise that nothing Labour would have done would have made one iota of difference. Bear in mind that nothing Labour did before the end of 2019 made any difference to the Conservatives' line. Sure, it made a bit of a difference to what they could do, but not to what they wanted to do. So there was no chance of influencing the government when it now had a stonking majority. The ERG have been firmly in control of that party for some time. Labour's strategy was to let the Conservatives own Brexit, own the Brexit that we're going to enter in 2021. The main danger for Starmer was if Boris Johnson presented a weak deal to Parliament, because there's an awful lot of internal fighting within the movement on how he should deal with this. He was minded to vote for the deal, but there are other factions who wanted him to abstain. I suppose the one benefit of a no-deal Brexit is that no such choice will ultimately have to be made. Labour can pick up Brexit in 2021. They can allow the Conservatives to have full ownership over it once the consequences are becoming apparent. If indeed we don't get a deal, we can't say 100% that is going to be the case, but it looks likely now. The situation is obviously too chaotic to ever be sure about anything, but that's where we are now. We'll have to wait for the actual announcement this evening and no doubt pick things up again tomorrow. taking into account not only what Boris Johnson says, but what the British media report, what the various movers and shakers in the EU say, and then, you know, people within the Conservative Party and in the wider Brexit movement as well. As I've said before, for those who are wanting 2020 to be over with all haste, as if problems are ever confined by a calendar, I'll be a little bit careful. I might even suggest that 2020 was just a warm-up. 2021 is likely to be the real shit show in the UK. But those are my thoughts. Let me know yours in the comments below. Hope you found the video interesting. If you did, don't forget to click the like button. And if you'd like to support the channel further, please also click the Patreon link for details. And until next time, I'll see you later.